When we talk about PFAS, also known as forever chemicals, the conversation usually focuses on the general population. But there are two groups where exposure may matter even more: pregnant women and children. Not because PFAS affect them differently in some dramatic way, but because early development is one of the most sensitive stages of human life. And when the exposure happens during that time, the effects can carry forward. So let's break down why. We see PFAS and forever chemicals, but what does any of it actually mean? PFAS stands for per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. A mouthful, right? That's why most just stick to PFAS. It's a large group of man-made or synthetic chemicals made up of chains of carbon atoms bonded to fluorine. And that bond is the key here. The carbon-fluorine bond is one of the strongest chemical bonds in organic chemistry, and it's what makes PFAS so useful. It makes them resistant to heat, it makes them repel water and grease. That's why they're used in things like nonstick cookware, waterproof clothes, and food packaging. These chemicals are really useful, but that strong carbon-fluorine bond is also what makes them not so great for us. That really strong bond doesn't break down easily, so they tend to stick around in the environment and even in our own bodies. That's why they're often referred to as forever chemicals. And over time, repeated exposure can lead to accumulation. When it comes to development, it really is amazing what happens during pregnancy. All the major systems are built from the ground up. The brain, the immune system, head, shoulders, knees and toes. During that process, the baby relies on the mother for things like nutrients and oxygen, and there's a protective barrier that protects the baby from infection, the placenta. But research has shown that PFAS can cross the placenta barrier, meaning they can reach the developing baby before birth. And what happens when it reaches the baby while those systems are still under construction? Well, that's what scientists are starting to pay close attention to. Some studies have linked higher PFAS exposure during pregnancy to things like elevated blood pressure, lower birth weight, and developmental concerns. That doesn't mean exposure guarantees harm, but it does mean there's enough here for scientists to keep digging deeper. The concern doesn't end at birth. Childhood is still a major stage of development. The immune system is still learning, the brain is still developing, and the body is still growing. Because of this, kids eat and drink more relative to their body weight than adults do. They also interact differently with the environment. Kids have a wonderful curiosity, which includes putting things in their mouth. They put everything in their mouth. And when you put all that together, it's easy to see why kids can have an increased exposure to PFAS. That matters because while their bodies are still developing, they can be more sensitive to what they're exposed to. And researchers are looking at possible links between PFAS exposure in children and things like immune response, growth patterns, and developmental outcomes. Research is ongoing. There's a lot to learn. We don't have every answer yet, but we know enough to keep asking the right questions. PFAS are everywhere, not just in the water, but also in things like food packaging, cosmetics, fabrics, and more. It's important to understand that you won't be able to avoid them completely, and that's okay. Instead, it's about reducing exposure. Focus on places where you can actually make a difference. And one of the easiest places to start is your drinking water, because it's something you and your family use every single day. Awareness is the first step, because once you understand where that exposure happens, you can start making better choices. Parenting already comes with enough unknowns. Don't let PFAS be one of them.